$30 million in debt, despite accumulating over $300 million during the course of his career, which poses a great question about money itself. Because a great deal of our actions or our motivations in life have an underlying desire or need to acquire it. But what's the point in acquiring it if the great issue seems to be with our ability to manage it?
Okay, sure. Some people have problems with this. This is the one reason why Social Security has been so vital in keeping older people out of poverty. But this is not the main reason for debt in the United States today, is not the inability to manage it. Most Americans live at the poverty line itself, which means that when you add up food, rent, and they're not able to afford to try to do a down payment to one day pay off the house so that they stop paying rent. So you have food, rent, clothing. Most Americans barely have anything left over. And sure, they might buy a TV, they might own a microwave. Lordy, lordy, lordy. Or those just might be part of what's in, besides the TV, that might also just be what's in the apartment that they rent. But sure, they might own a couch, they might own a TV, they might own clothing. But void of that, and possibly they own their own car. But other than that, they pretty much aren't making enough money to even have the possibility of saving enough.
Americans now have the highest credit card debt in history. Translation: you didn't learn anything!
Debt is an invisible burden being carried by the country's most vulnerable.
Of course, these statistics are reflective of the UK and the US, but consider for a moment your own attitude towards money and how money exists in your own life. What is money to you?
Money, rationally, is a percentage of your life. You go to a job, you either get paid hourly or yearly typically. Some people are contractors and get paid by the job, but it represents how much you're worth, a percentage of your life. Are you worth minimum wage, like $7 an hour? Or are you worth $10 an hour? How much is your life worth and your ability to work worth? That is what money is. It's a percentage of your life. It's telling you exactly how much you're worth as a human. If you go to other parts of the country, some people earn $1 a day. $365 a year. That's $3,665. Wait, am I doing that? Per decade. So that's under 40 grand that they could ever potentially earn over a given lifetime when you do the math. Under it. It's probably closer to like 30 grand is what you're telling. Those entire people's lives are worth just 30 grand given that they were born in that country. That's what money is. It is, unless you become rich of a certain level, and you have to go way beyond middle class. You have to become really, really rich, where money becomes something than a percentage of your life, which is how much you're valued by the society or by the greater world itself. And for the most part, if you're not even born in the first world, you're not worth much, no matter how hard, no matter how smart. Capitalism has been around for more than 400 years, but for most of the world, it has not brought them much.
Does it seem to enter your life and immediately leave once you have it? Has it ever placed you in a vulnerable position? A vulnerability that drew you closer to a get-rich-quick scheme or a guru telling you that you can get rich if you just bought their course. Whilst my entire channel aims to tackle these topics to some degree or another, I realize that our perceptions of money are sometimes more crucial than our ability to generate it, especially when our very brains are wired in such a way that prevents us from being financially sensible.
It's not about financially sensible if you're working a job in which you can't even afford your rent and food for 40 hours a week, where you have to get a second job to even have anything. That isn't it. And the second you have a kid, then yeah, you're stuck, never being able to do anything. Which is kind of one reason why more and more people are having less and less kids in the developed world. But for a country that is supposed to be richer than ever, it's kind of weird, isn't it? That more people don't even have enough money. When generations ago, people could afford it. Less technology, however, America's even wealthier. And it's not getting to the average person. It has nothing to do with their ability to save anything. And so far, you've yet to talk about the fact that if you try to get an education, that's going to be one of the biggest reasons why you're in debt. The actual number one reason you're in debt in the United States is because you've hurt yourself. The second you hurt yourself, you go into debt. Most people have only credit cards to pay off medical bills, and then they're stuck. The biggest bulk of debt in the United States is medical debt. And there's no way you can budget for that. So if the whole video doesn't point any of that out, this whole video is utter garbage.
Does it really matter if you're earning more than 6 figures a year if by the end of that year...
That's great that you have anecdotal people like Mike Tyson. You also had MC Hammer, who blew through even more money than Mike Tyson, and probably in a shorter amount of time. Yeah, sure. There's some people that win the lottery and blow it. It's called the lottery curse. And then you're arguing for what? 15% of the population will never ever have the ability to ever do that, I think is what you're looking at. I might be wrong about that number, but I'm pretty sure that's the number.
You have nothing left to show for it. Where is the disconnect? It's time we solve that mystery. And not only that, but explore a better framework for understanding money. A framework commonly taught in personal finance, but oftentimes missed in formal education. A question.
Why was it that if you went back before, people couldn't ever have any money? They lived in crammed apartments. If you went back to the 1880s, why was that? No one could save anything. And then there was this thing that developed after that called the labor movement. And then looking back, what has happened for the past 40 to 50? Oh wait, they've been rolling back the gains of the labor union movement. It started in the 1880s. It started moving forward, and then around 1910, there was pushback up until the Great Depression. And then the labor movement in the United States and some other countries really jumped forward during the Depression into World War II and after it. And then it's kind of weird. Why is this more of an issue in countries where there are no unions? Why is that?
What is money?
Why do people seem to be better savers in countries with strong unions? I wonder what that's about.
Rather, what does money represent? When you make a purchase from Amazon, when you're paid for your time working at a job, what is the significance of money in these transactions?
Once again, money is a value of your time. For most Americans, they earn X amount per hour. Thus, it's a percentage of life.
Money is commonly
It's your
defined as a
hours.
medium of exchange, an instrument that facilitates the sale, purchase, or trade of goods between parties. But I don't think this says much about what money actually represents. I think a better way of looking at money is an expression of value. You hand over a certain amount of money to purchase something.
And this is also rubbish. You think this, that's great. This is not this is nothing new. You're not blowing the top of anything. People have been arguing money value aspect for a long, long time.
Because you perceive its value to be equivalent to the amount of money that you handed over. Of course, the price is often not determined.
Money is, for you, whomever you're watching this more than likely, are not going to be rich. So money is your time.
By you.
It's
as
not
an
about
individual.
value. It's not about value. You do not go out working these jobs. You go out, you give a percentage of your life, and they give you these little pieces of paper or little zeros and ones on a credit card or debit card or whatever.
The market as a whole. But hone in on this one point. Money equals value. Why is that so important? Because often we give money a moral significance.
Money equals time.
A quote that I'm sure you've heard. Money is the root of
Money equals percent of your life.
all evil.
We look at someone who seems to have a large amount of wealth and think they got lucky. Who did
They did get lucky. They did. Generally speaking, they almost always grew up in a middle to upper class or even wealthy family. Some people were just born rich. Okay? You're in that. You could argue a handful of people that got into Harvard, but then they still had the luck of getting there. If they were not born of a very high class, the reason why they became rich is because of their connections. Steve Jobs was rich because his parents were high upper class and they had connections. Bill Gates' whole thing was his father had IBM connections. These people were rich because of connections. If you're not born, or if you don't figure out how to get to a place like Harvard, which most people get into Harvard through connections. There's a lot of people, your father was there, your grandfather was there. A lot of people get into Harvard from that. The Bush kids, look at all the connections they had. Everything they've ever had is through their own connections. Trump was born rich. These people in our society that people think are like rags to riches stories. No, they're not. This is a myth.
did they take advantage of to get to that position? Who had to lose in order for them to gain?
And if you're talking about the head of Amazon, if you're talking about Bill Gates, if you're talking about Steve Jobs, if you're even talking about whomever, name your billionaire of choice. Yeah, they did take advantage of X number of people. They ended up ripping off. Bill Gates did anti-business practices to make Microsoft so big. He did stuff that was illegal to destroy his competition.
And never what value was
I'm pretty sure
created in
Amazon
order
has
to
done it
generate.
too.
Understanding that money is simply value is the best way to
No, it's not. Money is not value. Okay, what is value? Why then does a bag, if it's value, then why can I buy one bag for $10? A purse, a briefcase, whatever, can be $10 to $50. And then you put a label on it, and now it jumps up to 10 times or more of that because of branding. So in our modern world, arguing for value is dumber than ever. It is dumber than ever. People will spend X amount on shoes because some artist did them. It does not matter if it's the same pair of shoes and the artist literally didn't necessarily always paint it by hand, but he designed it. and he's coming out with X number of shoes, so they're going to charge you X more than what they're worth. It isn't. Value is rubbish. Most of the products you buy are worth a fraction. Their actual value, how much it costs to produce, is a fraction upon a fraction of its worth. Companies charge you as much as they think you're willing to pay for. It has nothing to do with value. This is just rubbish that you learn in Econ 101. Money is value. No, this is some fairy tale.
Understanding that money is not necessarily evil, nor does it make a person evil. Sure, there are things such as scammers who convince you that what they have to sell is worth value, but that's paycheck to paycheck, or someone who is consumed by credit card debt. The simple mention...
Once again, the biggest reason for debt is medical. That is utter luck. If you hurt yourself, sometimes you've literally hurt yourself on the job.
of money equals value changes nothing. It may make me see money in a different light, but what part of that is actionable advice? To answer that question, I'll pose to you another question. What is your relationship with money? Money will come into your life and it will leave. This is a relationship that is often expressed by your income and expenses. Another practical way of expressing this, which I particularly like, is your production versus your consumption. For the most part, money will enter your life because you have produced some form of value. And for most of us, this...
And most of the time, okay, so then, who's the biggest business in the world right now? Oh wait, Amazon. So, how much is that company worth? $1 trillion. So, how much production and value are the people who are worth every cent of Amazon? How many of the delivery drivers, how many of the people who move and shake that business, what is their worth? It's way more than what they're paying them because they keep racking in huge amounts. So there are people who are giving them more production, more value to the company, but they're only paid, and it's just recently $15 an hour for work in which people keep dying on the job through heat stroke and whatnot. They don't get to have bathroom breaks at all. The drivers, the workers, are treated like garbage. And yet, they are worth so much to that company. The company couldn't have done anything through the pandemic without these workers that they're trying to pay as little as possible. Which, I mean, if you're trying to say value, if money should be value, then if capitalism functioned, people would see their value represented more in the world. If you're 100 employees and you're part of a multi-billion-dollar company, then why aren't you making that? Why aren't you making $1 million? If that's your value, if your company is worth so much, producing so much, earns so much, then why is it that the board of directors, the shareholders, whatever, are making hand over fist, but the people that are running the company are making nothing?
This value will come in the form of labor, a job. Money will leave when you have consumed.
Okay, so I grew up ranching. You can go out to the ranchers. They raise cattle. I grew up where a lot of places are open range. All right, there are gatekeepers in that industry. Beef costs X amount. However, they can raise cows. They don't get the same level of value for those cows. Those cows get shipped to be mass produced. Those companies make huge amounts of money. The ranchers don't make the money. They should make a lot of the money. They're the ones that raise the cattle. The people who go in and are typically actually illegals, getting paid less than minimum wage in some regards in certain places, or doing brutal work, losing arms and fingers all the time, they're not getting any of the production. However, the multi-conglomerate company that literally owns everything like a titan, like a baron, he's the one. The guy at the top is getting hand over fist. The ranchers don't see any of it. Even though they're doing hard work. They're out there raising the cattle, moving them around day after day, doing back-breaking work. They don't see the money from it. It's the guys that own the feedlots, the butchers, the people that have that mechanism, that middle road, like a railroad baron between the customer and the people of value, are a huge gatekeeper taking all the profit. And that's not right. More money should be going back to the ranchers. More money should be going to the people producing them. More money should be going to the workers of the feedlots, if they have to go there. More money should be going to the people that are butchering out these animals. More money should be going to probably Raley's or whatever than what they make on it. Or this meat should be way cheaper. But the gatekeepers get in there and they take the profit. They can go into places, they can have huge feedlots in which they have so many cattle packed in to an area that they end up destroying the groundwater in that area. They will have zero costs, even though they've now destroyed the groundwater for any farmer in the area. None of that comes back to them. There can be huge pig feedlots that are so gross that shoot feces up in the air that it actually becomes like dust and whatnot and coats towns. They don't have to pay for cleanup to those towns, no. But they're the ones that make all the money. It's not the farmers. It's not the ranchers. It's not the day laborers. It's not the people that working at the feedlots. It's not the butchers. It's a handful of people who own the company that literally never go to that company, who never really work at that company, taking all the value out. So if you want to pretend like you live in a world in which capitalism really works for you, go for it. The only time capitalism works for anyone other than the people who own that capital, the people that own everything, that always move towards monopoly until enough people rise up and fight that. The only people who ever earn anything typically is during mass labor movements. If enough ranchers band together and create a massive co-op, they can actually fix prices for cattle if they wanted to. If you got basically the concept of a union, if you got every rancher out there joining up and collectively bargaining the cattle that is sold to the feedlots, then maybe things would change. There's a plethora of things. And cheers if you're someone that doesn't even like vegan. This doesn't really apply to you, other than the fact that there's gatekeepers with other things. Have a great one. God bless. Take care.